You know that feeling when you're around a certain person or like you're around a certain place and you feel a certain way, or like you feel uncomfortable around like a certain person if you've been around them for a long time, or you feel uncomfortable going to a certain place. And we ultimately would just take that and no, like assume the worst out of it, that um that's a bad place to go to, or that's a bad person. But sometimes that's not necessarily true. Sometimes that's your ego, like fighting to be seen and fighting to get some kind of like validation for itself, that like who you say you are is who you are. And then this person comes and this person comes in and kind of conflicts with that. Because I mean, I don't know, I know personally from my experience and like having different friendships and being around different people a lot of the time, and then you kind of start to feel like, what am I doing with my life? And that's meant to guide you. When people trigger you, it's something that's normally, usually inside yourself that's getting triggered. Something in you that you haven't worked on, and you haven't really sat with and thought about, giving thought to, in terms of like a wound that you may have, like regarding your self-image, regarding your intelligence, regarding your social skills, regarding your points of view on anything in this world. And then that person has a different approach or a different way of looking at things in the world. And then you feel triggered by them because their narrative doesn't fit your idea that you created in your own head. And it's a good and a bad thing, because sometimes people, they have bad views on the world, and you can get triggered by that in a normal way, because it's like, oh, their point of view doesn't align with my point of view, and you can respectfully agree to disagree and walk away from that situation. That's fine. But sometimes it's like some people don't kind of let you go. They like want you to see their point of view. They want you to understand their point of view, even though you're saying like you don't understand it and you don't want to. Um, Even then, there's something to learn from that kind of situation as well, because everyone's a mirror of everyone else. So when people trigger you, it's usually because of something inside yourself that you feel yourself being triggered. And most of the time, it's also because you haven't reached a level of like awareness about yourself, and you still have insecurities, and you still have things that you need to deal with in order to really feel, you know, um, unbothered by things in this life. I feel like everyone is going to feel bothered by things, because everyone has triggers, everyone has insecurities, everyone has issues with themselves that they haven't worked on, or issues with their lives that they kind of like, vomit onto other people that they become close with, that don't really have anything to do with that. But you end up bringing toxicity from your life and like pushing it out onto other people close to you when you don't work on those issues and see them for what they are, and realize that, it's just one aspect, it's just one part of this like movie that is your life. It's not the whole story, it's just one picture, one frame. And it can be that it doesn't need to be dragged into the whole like movie, into the whole script of who you are. And so many of us get stuck with these ideas about who we are, and we don't ever really move past it. It's like, I'm this way because this happened to me, and then like that's your reasoning for everything you do, and for every perspective you have, and for how you treat other people, if you treat them like in a shitty way, or like, you're choosing to be that way, and you don't have to be that way. It's just a personal choice. And sometimes the best thing to do in a situation is nothing. Don't react, don't respond. Just let it be what it needs to be. Because when you let things be what they are, the thing that it's meant to be will eventually, come forth. It's like a wave crashing, in nature. when there's a heavy storm, eventually it stops and then you can see clearly again. The trees stop, swaying from side to side. Um, the sand is not going to get in your eye again when you're walking out in the storm and the heavy wind. And everything will be still again. Nature will go back to its normal, beautiful, natural state. Just like a wave or waves when they're crashing and it's like the water is turbulent, and that's also like how we experience things in life. But eventually it always goes back to equilibrium. You get the high tide and the low tide and everything goes back to being still, and it's in the moment of stillness that you find the answers you need, and it's in that moment that you can actually think clearly and do the right thing that you need to do. So don't make decisions in the heat of the moment. Don't make decisions when you're angry or when you feel heightened in your emotions. Don't make a decision at that time. Wait until you feel like yourself again, when you're not being triggered by anything or anyone, and then move from that kind of relaxed point of view. Because when you're chasing things and you're expecting things to go how you want them to, they usually are not going to go how you want them to. You need to let things just run the course of what they need to be. And I think a lot of people don't do that, and that's why they end up becoming these like toxic people in life, toxic people in society in general, because everyone's trying to just get people to believe what they're saying. But you don't even believe what you're saying. You need to believe what you're saying so that other people can believe what you're saying. And it is a struggle to do that, but it gets easier with time. When you listen to what you feel is the truth and then you actually do those things, it makes life and God and the universe essentially give you what you need, give you the things that you need when you live up to what you say you are. So if you're a bad person and you're like, this is a very, very, very awful example. It's not a good example at all. But even if you're like a bad person, okay, I don't even want to use this example, but basically, if you're a bad person and you own it, and there are certain things that you want in this life, and of course, no harm to anybody or anything, but if there's certain things you want in this life, and you are like not a great person, but if you want something and the thing that you want is usually of no consequence or harm to anybody else, you usually will get it. You will get it because, again, energy and the frequency of life around you and the way things naturally happen and the way God designed, things to happen, is when you are in conflict or when you feel like you need to prove something in order to get that thing, is when you will not get it because you are trying too hard. When you don't try and you remove that pressure away from yourself, you can actually flow like with grace and ease into where you're supposed to be, because there's no blockage there, there's no tension, there's no resistance. It can happen the way it needs to happen. The same way with the ocean, the same way with the trees, the birds, nature, flowers blooming in spring. Nobody's telling them to do those things. No one's like, oh, it's, the 1st of September. Where are the flowers? Where are, like, the trees? Where are the leaves? Where are the colors? I can't see spring. Like, nobody tells spring to be spring. It just is. It just does happen. Nobody, tells the months of the year to be the seasons that they are. They just are. And the same applies to your life because you were designed the same way. You're not separate from creation or from the way everything else exists and happens and flows and the way things unfold in the times that they're supposed to. Your life is the same as that. It's just that because you're conscious, we are highly conscious human beings in this world. We want to attach and cling to all these mental ideas, to all of these things that were fed to us by society. And we have these attachments, and that's the reason why most of us suffer mentally, because you are attached to a certain kind of idea that you think is the best way that something can happen, and you're not allowing yourself to have the chance and the opportunity to see the results that you want happening. But they maybe are not going to happen the way you want them to. But regardless, as long as they do happen, is that not what you want? So we need to let go of that tight gripping into wanting things to happen exactly how we want them to, and understand that sometimes even when they don't, that could be the biggest blessing in that moment. You just don't see it yet, but over time you will be able to see it. And I feel like it's so important, the people that you're spending your time with, because those people can make or break you and your identity and how you see the world and how you see yourself. And I've come to realize and notice this as well. When I'm around certain types of people that are just very highly not conscious, and they don't care what they say and they don't care what people think. And it's good to be that kind of person, but I feel like there is a line to be drawn with everything. You can't just be like having this mindset that you're perfect, in a sense, that there's nothing wrong with you and that your views on everything is 100% correct. There's so many people that are like that you have to actually be someone that's open to criticism and be someone that's open to learning and growing and realizing that, hey, I might have been wrong in my approach here. This may not have been the best decision to make at this time. And then you learn from that and you become better and you're able to even help other people. But if you're someone that just thinks that they're perfect, those are actually, I think, one of the most dangerous people society has. Because the people that become close to those kinds of people and build bonds with those kinds of people, they end up mentally suffering a lot of the time, because connection means that you need to be able to see yourself as a flawed person. You need to be open to growing and to looking at things differently. Sometimes just relaxing and letting things happen the way that they need to. If the other person is telling you to do that, why not believe them? Why not believe them? Because you're stuck in your own ego and you're stuck in this idea that it has to go this way. It has to go the way I need it to. But who told you that? Who told you that? And even if they did tell you that, that's their perception. And you don't have to believe their perception, because it doesn't mean that the way things happen for them will necessarily be the same way that it happens for you as well. Things can happen differently for you. You're an individual, unique creation. Not everything has to happen the way that it happened for someone else. Things take time, and sometimes we need to trust and believe in the people around us as well. And trust that they're doing their best and envision the best case scenario for them. Don't give them like your negative energy, especially if they're a family member and like you have to be around them all the time. Like, don't try to give them negativity. Try to be positive about like the decisions that they're making for themselves. At least they're thinking for themselves. At least they have a point of view and a perspective that you were designed to have. Don't let anyone take that away from you, because you were meant to think for yourself. Spending time with the wrong people can really hold you back. It's true that so much of our lives, I'm reading an extract right now, from a book called The Mountain Is You. And this is a really, really good read. And many of the books actually that I've read are very good reads. So let me continue with the extract. It's true that so much of our lives is shaped by the people we spend them with. The company you keep is another common way that people sabotage themselves. Certainly, you can think of some people in your life who stress you out, make you feel insecure, yet keep you coming back for more. These relationships exist at the lighter end of the toxicity spectrum, but they are self-defeating nonetheless. If you find yourself preoccupied with a certain friendship or relationship that is making you feel almost addicted to the feeling of being less than or jealous of, you need to gradually phase out of it. You don't need to be mean or rude or even cut anyone out of your life. You do, however, need to understand that the people you spend the most time with will shape your future irrevocably, and so you must choose them wisely. So that feels so resonant because you can actually see by, how things happen for you in life, the opportunities, and your overall experience of life usually is connected to the types of people that you are connected to. And it's so important that you choose those people wisely because they can really make or break the future that you plan on having for yourself. Another thing that people need to do, and I spoke about in the previous video as well, is stop being so fearful about the things you want in this life and just go for them. Because even if you fail, who cares? Because at the end of the day, there's no actual finish line other than, living your life the best way that you can, and then you get old one day. And we all know what happens after that. So it's like, why do you care about what anyone thinks about you in that space in between? Just be who you feel most called to be, and you'll know what that is because you'll sleep well at night most of the time, and you'll feel like you're fulfilled with your path, and you don't need to feel like now you need to drastically change to make this happen. You just relax and you be the best you can be given the circumstances that you have. God has positioned you there the way he's positioned everything in nature to be where they're at. And if you just follow that flow and you be authentic and real moment to moment, eventually you will be led to where you need to be, just like all things in life and just like all things in creation. Worrying about irrational fears and least likely circumstances is something that holds a lot of people back. Another very common way that people sabotage without realizing is by preoccupying themselves with fears of worst-case scenarios. You're probably familiar with this, at least to some degree. You have a weird or highly unlikely thought that evokes a deep sense of dread, fear, and a series of doomsday scenarios in your head. You then keep coming back to it, to the point that it even controls some part of your life. Irrational fears, especially the kind that are least likely to become reality, are often what we project real fears onto. These irrational fears are safe because deep down we know they aren't going to happen. They are placeholders, a way for us to express the feeling we really have onto something we know isn't going to happen. When you find yourself in a fear cycle, constantly repeating some strange, random, or unimportant one-off circumstance or situation that has a very low probability of becoming reality, ask yourself if you have any feelings about something related that is actually valid. For example, if you get anxious about being a passenger in a car, consider if your fear is of moving forward or being out of control. Or if you're anxious about being fired from your job, the fear might really be the idea that you aren't worthy of another job or being humiliated by a higher up. So I'm sure everyone can relate to being in this kind of circumstance. How to resolve this? Instead of wasting all of your energy trying to control some worst case scenario, consider the message of the fear, maybe, and what it is telling you that you need in your life. If the fear has an abstract metaphor, what would the meaning be? Is the abrupt loss of income a symbol of your desire for security? Is the fear of the future a symbol of not living fully right now? Is the anxiety about making decisions a symbol for knowing what you really want and being too afraid to choose it? At the core of the things we most fear is a message that we are trying to send ourselves about what we really care about. If we can identify what we want to protect, we can find healthier and more secure ways to do it. So, how to tell if you're in a self-sabotaging cycle? Even if you can cognitively understand self-sabotaging behaviors, sometimes the most difficult shift is recognizing that we are engaging in them. So, you're more aware of what you don't want than what you do, firstly. And if you're aware of what you don't want, then I would think it's really easy after that to make decisions, ensuring that you're not going in the direction of what you do not want. And no one else can actually make that decision for you. And sometimes people end up self-sabotaging themselves because they listen to other people And then they get scared and they're like, oh no, if I don't do this, like what that person told me, then my life's gonna fall apart. But again, stop listening to just other people, and you need to feel it in here. If it is resonant with you and your path, then you'll know. And stop doing things out of fear and do things from a point of truly feeling connected to it. And sometimes we end up choosing the wrong thing or going back to the toxicity again out of fear. But if you do let it go, who knows what magical, amazing things could come next. And you just need to really trust the process and not keep wanting to suffer, because you're choosing that over and over again. Whereas if you freed yourself from the thought of it and you just let things go how they're meant to go, while you're being the most authentic version of who you are on the inside, then you'll notice that no matter what happens, even if something bad happens and it looks like on the surface like your life is falling apart, they're falling together in another way. And it's just the way you're perceiving that situation in the moment that's going to carry you. So try and just be positive. Even if the worst thing happens, think, well, okay, this happened. Great. Now I know I'm being led to where I'm supposed to go. You follow with that and you'll eventually get to where you need to be. And yeah, thank you for listening to my video and let me know what you think about it. Lots of love, and I hope that you really just let go of all of the tension and pressure you feel inside of yourself to be perfect, and just remember to be.